According to the National Bank, the main external risks for the Ukrainian economy this year may be external military aggression and the global economic slowdown.
In 2018, the main economic and financial indicators of the country were the best in the last 5 years from the time the bromide of change of power, annexation of Crimea and the conflict in the east of the country, said the NBU. The National Bank believes that the annual DDD growth, which will be available soon, will show that in 2018, the DDD grew by 3.4%. And inflation, though higher than the forecast, but for the first time in 5 years to keep within the parameters odnosniko digits to 9.8%. Thus, according to NBU Chairman Yakov Smoley, the reserves grew due to the fact that the National Bank bought $1.4 billion of excess currency in the market. Still the same received from the reserves at the end of the year after the resumption of cooperation with the IMF. During the rapid survey of participants of the Open Doors Day in the National Bank, the bankers, businessmen, journalists, the danger remember only 4% of respondents. But 56% the main risk for the economy, called the presidential and parliamentary elections.
The NBU also mentioned electoral instability as the main domestic risk factor. Mainly this instability could affect the inflation expectations of population and business.
Another internal risk factor is labor migration, which, as suggested by the NBU, may be increased through the plans of Germany and the Czech Republic to soften the terms of employment for foreign citizens. Among other problems that can threaten the Ukrainian economy from the outside, the National Bank called a trade war, the global economic slowdown and the weakening of investor interest in developing countries. Potential risk that is often mentioned throughout the past year, the period of peak payments on external debt. Now, after Ukraine agreed with the IMF on a new loan program standby and got her the first tranche, called much less frequently. Deputy Finance Minister Sergei Varlamov said that the burden of external debt remains. However, according to officials, these expenses are planned, and their volumes do not change. But the possibility of a slowing global economy is the fact that, directly and indirectly affect the revenues of the state budget, considering how Ukraine is dependent on export earnings, and how significant is the share of commodities in exports. Normally, a decrease in oil prices entails a reduction in prices of other commodities, such as grain, which is the main item of Ukrainian exports. As noted by the chairman of the Independent Banks Association of Ukraine, Roman Shpek, now the state's trade balance is deteriorating. There is a deficit of about $12 billion. Such figures the trade deficit was on the eve of the 2008 crisis. Business representatives also refer to the negative consequences of the global economic slowdown for the Ukrainian, given its openness.
First, however, they are concerned about the consequences of choices. Alarm business is not in the elections themselves, and the instability and populism that accompanies them, said Vyacheslav Klimov, the chairman of the Union of Ukrainian Entrepreneurs.
Because when we see on the street posters of the competition candidates, who and how many will reduce the price of gas, everyone knows that someone will pay for it.
And business suspects it will be him. That the results of the elections will depend on many things in the country, in particular, and the preservation of economic stability, important for investors, says Executive Director of the European Business Association Anna Derevyanko. Not to lose not only macroeconomic stability, but to keep the pace of reforms in a year of double elections. Council of Kiev and the IMF resident representative in Ukraine Jost Longman. Of course, this year elections will be more turbulent than usual, but this in no way reduces the importance of privatization, financial sector strengthening and reforms of the tax authorities, as well as land reform, he says.